Football fans everywhere have gotten earfuls of Ruben Amorim lately. The Sporting Lisbon man is one of the hottest managerial prospects right now, and many clubs are looking to him as the new messiah to lead them into a new era. Amorim joins an ever-increasing line of young managers who are disrupting the beautiful game with sleek, exciting gameplay. The Portuguese seemingly burst onto the scene from nowhere, taking the world by storm and attracting attention from far and wide. In this video, we'll be delving deeper into who is Ruben Amorim, what makes him so popular, and if moving to Liverpool is the next logical step in a thriving career. Amorim was deployed as a midfielder during his playing days. He was nowhere near the cream of the crop, but he was a good reader of the game and was versatile enough to be deployed on the wings or as right back, although his natural playing position was in midfield. He spent the bulk of his career at Belenenses and Benfica, retiring at the latter after an uninspiring loan spell at Qatari side Al Wakra. During his career, Amorim was called up to the national team for the 2010 and 2014 World Cups, where he impressed with the minutes he got. But 3 years after his last World Cup, he ripped up his contract with Benfica and hung up his boots. Only 32 at the time, Amorim began making a silent transition into coaching. Although he's popular today for the miracles he's wrought at Sporting CP, Amorim was already an exciting managerial talent before stepping foot at the Estadio José Alvalade. His first gig was at Casa Pia, a third division side in the Portuguese league. Then he caught his big break with Braga, a top-flight side who were underperforming and on the verge of capitulating. In 3 months, Amorim steadied the ship, playing 13 matches, mostly against stronger opponents in Benfica, Sporting and Porto, winning 10 of those fixtures and drawing 2. People were starting to notice his managerial talent. Sporting, who was starting to flail compared to its other rivals, Benfica and Porto needed no further convincing. Despite having been in management for 5 seconds, the Lisbon side were willing to part with $10 million to poach Amorim from Braga, ignoring the fact that he used to play for their city rivals Benfica. Amorim's appointment in 2020 shattered many club records at Sporting. For one, the club has only ever offered over $10 million for 2 players throughout their history. In the managerial world, on the other hand, a seemingly unknown Portuguese coach suddenly climbed into 3rd place for the highest transfer fee paid to a manager at the time. The managerial tide in football has been turning for the past few years. Older, more experienced coaches are approaching their twilight years. Some are opting for a break, as is the case of Jurgen Klopp, while others are getting the boot, as is the case of Jose Mourinho. Whatever the case, the prevailing trend in the past few years involves replacing older coaches with younger, more exciting talents. Out with Roy Hodgson, in with Xabi Alonso, out with Hansi Flick, in with Julian Nagelsmann, and so on. You get the point. Of course, this isn't a widespread trend yet. Clubs aren't ditching established names for new, shinier managers. But this has been a consistent trend that could potentially change the structure of the beautiful game. Liverpool are the latest team looking for a potential replacement, and the name Ruben Amorim has been discussed rather fondly amongst the higher-ups of the Merseyside club. This development comes after Liverpool's primary target, Xabi Alonso, ruled himself out of the market. Even if he didn't, it's unlikely he'd want to make the jump to Merseyside, what with managerial vacancies expected to open at Bayern Munich, Barcelona and Real Madrid. Plus, the Reds only tried to replace him with Gareth Barry as a player. He couldn't still be mad at that, could he? Anyhow, besides Alonso, Ruben Amorim is the next young manager with the highest stock right now, ahead of even Roberto De Zerbi. But why? The Portuguese league isn't even in the top 5 European leagues, coming in at number 6 instead. So, why has one of its managers got the world in a chokehold? As of his appointment at Sporting in March 2020, the club had only won 4 major league trophies in the past decade. 2 Taça da Liga titles and 2 Taça de Portugal titles. Even more harrowing, their last league title win was 19 years ago. Amorim has since changed the club's fortunes. Within 4 years at Sporting, he's ended their league title drought and is currently in pole position to win it again. But that's only putting it lightly. His first league win was done in style, with Sporting going on a 32-game unbeaten streak, conceding a mind-bending 30 goals in 34 games, and losing their first match only after securing the title. If it wasn't already clear, all of this happened in his debut campaign at the Lisbon club. For the following 2 seasons, Ruben attempted a rebuild, rapidly evolving the squad to remain competitive. Players were sold to balance the books, and new, even younger talents were brought in and groomed into reliable options. And now, in his 4th season, all that hard work's paid off, and he's poised to repeat the heroics of his first full season and go out in a blaze of glory. In 4 years, he's won the league, 2 Taça Liga titles, and already has a hand on his 2nd league title. In the most recent title decider against fierce City rivals Benfica, Amorim managed to leapfrog his former club to a 2-1 win. This makes them 4 points clear of their closest competition in the table with a game in hand. Amorim's achievements with the green half of Lisbon are the stuff of legends. Not just because he has the team playing fluid, exciting football, but because of all he's won in such a short spell. For perspective, despite being one of the biggest clubs in the Portuguese league, Sporting have only ever been league champions twice in 40 years. That said, in the current campaign, Sporting have continued to impress under Amorim. They currently have the most wins in the league, as well as the most goals and the least draws. Ruben Amorim may not have been the best midfielder in his playing days, but that didn't mean he was terrible. Far from it. He's always been a savant of the beautiful game, including his ability to read the game well and carry the ball. All these qualities have helped him succeed as a manager, since he sees and analyzes the game at a different level from his counterparts. It also explains why he uses the peculiar 3-4-3 formation. Unless there's proof of a time before Casa Pia when he used a different system, Amorim's always stuck to this formation across every team he's managed. Of course, that doesn't mean he follows the system rigidly. He's introduced variations that make his teams dynamic and much less monotonous and predictable. However, the core ideology has always been to use the 3-4-3 system built on defensive resilience, wing play, possession, and the strong positional coverage that the formation affords. Sporting are perhaps the best example of this unique style of play in action, as well as the variations that Amorim's introduced to keep up with changing dynamics during play. The lineup out of the gate is a 3-4-3, but that changes into a 5-2-3 when defending, providing the team with adequate defensive cover. The variation also keeps enough manpower up front to kickstart a counter, should the opponent be caught on the back foot. The evidence that this system works is in the numbers. Sporting have conceded fewer goals, 20 in over 30 matches, whilst also leading the league for goals scored, 77, 16 more ahead of the closest title contenders. Liverpool have a different strategy for hiring managers, unlike many other clubs in the English football pyramid. They mostly prefer established managers with reputable CVs. Barring Brendan Rodgers, who was hired for his heroics with little old Swansea, most other Liverpool bosses had something going for them. Even Roy Hodgson was a pretty prolific coach during his spell at the club. Rafa Benitez and Jurgen Klopp proved their mettle beyond disrepute before showing up at Anfield. However, in preparing for Klopp's succession, the club have been unusual with their approach. Before Steven Gerrard unravelled at Aston Villa and moved to the Saudi project, he was easily the preferred pick to replace the German. But that ship has since sailed, and the Reds have now set their sights on Ruben Amorim. And for good reasons, too. A new coach means a new project, which could go either way. Amorim has a similar work ethic to Jurgen Klopp in that he focuses on unity, grit, and togetherness. This philosophy has been crucial in getting Sporting out of their yearly slump and explains why Liverpool never capitulates like, say, Chelsea, even at their lowest point, as we saw during the great injury crisis of the 2020-21 season. Additionally, Amorim's willingness to embrace tactical flexibility is crucial to Liverpool covering up their weaknesses and still playing good football. In the Reds' match against Manchester City, to keep Pep's side from overpowering them in midfield, Klopp adjusted his formation for Joe Gomez to play higher up. And when Trent Alexander-Arnold was under fire for his defensive woes, Jurgen wasted no time in transitioning the Englishman into an inverted midfielder, where his insane crosses and passes could still be effective. Amorim has had to deal with a squad overhaul and having some of their best players poached without breaking down. His formation also heavily relies on quick switches to contain or press the opposition as necessary. Finally, Amorim is a huge believer in young talent and has developed his fair share of them to prominence, with the likes of Pedro Porro and Nuno Mendes soon catching the eye of bigger clubs. Even now, his development of Diamond has made the centre-back one of the most in-demand players going into the summer transfer window. Klopp has a similar belief in young players, with the German recently using more academy players than at any time during his Anfield career. We've seen the likes of Kwanzaa, Elliott, Jones, Bradley and several others bloom under Klopp's tutelage. So Amorim would only continue in the German stead. Ruben Amorim's rise to the top and subsequent fame as a young manager is neither novel nor groundbreaking. Many have come before him and many others will after too. That means Amorim ought to be weighed for the Liverpool job based on performance rather than peculiarity. Additionally, being good at one thing with one team doesn't necessarily translate to being a good coach with a different team. We've seen this happen several times in the past and even recently with the likes of Bruno Lage and Andre Villas-Boas. Both managers played great football, were young and transitioned to the EPL with bigger teams, but we all know how that went. Even older managers haven't been spared, with the likes of Nuno Espirito Santo unraveling at Wolves and Tottenham. Granted, the Portuguese league has produced great managerial talents in the likes of Jose Mourinho and the others mentioned previously. However, barring the special one, not many have succeeded outside the Portuguese league. There's a good reason for that. The Portuguese league isn't very competitive once you take out the big three: Porto, Sporting, Benfica. There have only ever been 5 clubs to win the league, the big three and 2 outliers in Belenenses and Boavista. An even bigger monopoly exists inside this already monopolized league, with Benfica and Porto accounting for 76% of league wins. Compare that to the 24 different teams that have won the EPL. Is it any wonder then that most Primera Liga coaches completely come undone in bigger, more competitive leagues? Finally, as impressive as Amorim's formation's been, it might not be the most astute for Liverpool right now without a squad overhauling or converting players into new roles. For the latter, there's no guarantee it'll even work. Additionally, although the formation appears seemingly invincible in covering all bases, it's in fact not infallible. The 3-4-3 formation's been increasingly adopted across the world, with Inter Milan playing a similar brand of football. Plus, there are only so many variations that Amorim can introduce. So, there have been times when Sporting have been picked apart and prodded like lab rats, forcing the club to rely on individual brilliance. This wouldn't be a problem for a well-balanced squad, but that's the golden goose of football. There simply isn't one. Need we also mention that when playing against better opponents, Amorim's been less than stellar. You need only look at Sporting's performance in the Champions League and Europa League to understand our meaning. Ultimately, Ruben Amorim is a great coach in his own right, but it's unclear if he's the saviour Liverpool need to steady the ship and build upward from the Klopp era. Because right now, he's unproven on the bigger stages and plies his trade in a league less competitive than the Championship. What are your thoughts on Ruben Amorim replacing Jurgen Klopp? Is he the right man for the job? Or is any manager set up to fail after replacing such an iconic coach? Let us know below and don't forget to like, subscribe and share our channel.